Hello everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith, and together we're going to be rolling on Kickstarter for June 2019. You might be wondering, where has this segment been for 3 months? Very good question. That's actually a very valid question. And it has been 3 months. March of 2019 was the last time that I did one of these rolling on Kickstarter segments. And it's been a bit. There hasn't really been any excuse for it, except I just haven't gone ahead and done one. But today was actually the launch of multiple projects that I really believe are something that the solo community should at least be looking into, or ones that I believe are of interest to the solo community, and ones that I'm excited about myself personally. So one thing I want to say before this video begins, if you're brand new to the channel, or you're brand new to even this segment within the channel, I first off want to make the disclaimer perfectly clear. In no way, shape, or form am I paid to do this particular segment. I have nobody paying me to direct you guys to a particular project. This is literally me just sitting down, going through Kickstarter with you, and essentially just pointing out ones that I'm really interested in myself. And that's simply it. So again, regardless of what I say during this video, do your own research, because Kickstarter can be a minefield. There are projects out there that have been funded and have failed. There are projects in there that have never made their funding goal, all this kind of stuff. And there's just in terms of the communication between the backers and the individual creators, sometimes that goes sideways. So there's always things that I can't and have no control over. So I'm just pointing you towards projects I'm passionate about, but it's really up to you to make an informed decision, however you go ahead and do that, in order to pick the projects that you think best suit you. Again, these are your dollars coming out of your pocket to invest in a future fulfilled product, hopefully, and it'll give you much joy and hopefully lots of it in the future when it delivers. And I can tell you right now, in the month of June of 2019, there are a lot of Kickstarters here that I got my eye on right now. And so we're going to start it off with one of the Kickstarters that actually launched today. You can see that right there in the left-hand corner of the screen, Splice and Dice. This thing funded in 86 seconds, so that's obviously got to be a record for them. Too Many Bones, Slice and Dice, it's a series reprint as well, so for those of you that have been on the fence, or you've been thinking about shipping costs, or because again, Too Many Bones is a heavy product when you bundle it all together, especially if you're going to pick up everything. It is really nice to pick this stuff up through Kickstarter, because there is definitely a savings to be had from doing so versus, picking things individually off the store. So that's a bonus. And of course, with Kickstarter, you get all the extra stretch goals and goodies that everybody else is familiar with at this point in time. But without further ado, how about we get right into the segment by starting it off with Too Many Bones? And it actually fits quite well, because Too Many Bones Undertow was my #1 solo game of the year last year. So I'm really excited to see this thing come back to Kickstarter, because more content for a game that I truly love is always exciting. And I can't wait to see what they are looking to do with this. And I can already sense by my quick and brief run through today when this thing launched that this thing has a lot of tyrant creation, as it mentions right here in the description. It's some new gear locks and all that kind of stuff. So let's dive into this one together. So Too Many Bones, Splice and Dice, the series reprint. All right, so first off, first day, and again, I am Canadian, so the funds that you see here on screen are going to be in Canadian dollars, but every once in a while I'll pop over this right here so you guys can see what that conversion is, because the majority of my audience is in the States, or even elsewhere in some cases. But this is going to be a relatively short campaign, which might be surprising to some individuals. I think the question's been asked as to why, although Chip Theory Games is really good at answering those types of questions. I would definitely recommend heading to the Too Many Bones community Facebook page, as that's where they seem to answer a lot of those questions that crop up from Kickstarter, if you're not getting a response within the comments. But also they do a fantastic job of, catching people through there as well. So you can see this is fairly successful out of the gate already. They only need $66,000 to fund. They went way past that, 607 in Canadian dollars, 454 in USD. So definitely going to be fulfilling on this side of things. In terms of what's actually included inside of this new product, now this is where things get interesting because it launched today. I don't even have a full grasp as to like what's actually being offered in this Kickstarter, except just my own genuine excitement to see it and to dive deeper on what actually is coming out, because I enjoyed the base game. As you can see here, the overall rating of BGG from the community in general, not just me and other people included as well, was 8.5, and it's actually really cool even to see my logo there. You can see solo game of the year. See, I wasn't just making that up. But there's other individuals within the community that have also, pegged this thing as being a game that's worth looking at. And if you're talking solo, this is fantastic, and it's great co-op. I mean, again, with other people as well. It's fantastic. Now, what's really cool is that every iteration of Too Many Bones has seemed to progress, like not only progress and enhance the game, but actually the mechanics of the game have become more interesting as these big box, new versions come out. So when it's gone from Too Many Bones to Undertow, there's new mechanics on the battle map that kind of changed up how the battles are done. Of course, there's new tyrants that are going to throw new wrenches into situations. There's going to be more baddies involved. So all this kind of stuff is going to constantly be changing things up. But this one, it looks to be one of the most kind of like this one looks very different. And you'll see this very, very soon. You can also see the pledge levels along the side here. And these ones are actually in USD, but you'll notice there's one pledge before we actually go through this fantastic artwork that is littered throughout the campaign page. One thing that they do absolutely amazing job of is their artwork. It's always fantastic, and I really, really like it. So again, if you have none of the Too Many Bones stuff and you want to get everything, like there you go, complete collection. But the one that disappears the fastest, of course, anything to do with logbooks is also kind of something that gets grabbed up pretty quick, because there's these liberation logbooks and water logbooks, which are basically like they're essentially what they were, and the reason they were gone is they're basically just books that basically add some theme and some narrative behind the game as well. So kind of just, it's almost like an art book, but instead of it just being art, there's actually content narrative in there as well. Just ties you even deeper into the world. Is it necessary? No. Is it nice to have? Yes. But one of the most sought after pledges across the board for Chip Theory games is the Strategist Pledge. This thing happens every single time that they create a Kickstarter, and the whole purpose of this, if they haven't changed it, is it includes a copy of every future game Chip Theory produces through Kickstarter. So if you happen to snag this, they typically allow between 10 and 12-ish backers, and of course this changes depending on the timing of things and how many they actually have available. But literally, if you ever get a chance to grab this and you actually believe in them as a company, this is the kind of pledge you want to get. If you seem to be on a train that seems to be purchasing every single thing they put out, then this is going to be beneficial for you money-wise. But it's also extremely hard to get because there's only a few of them, right? So it's the classic Kickstarter battle of trying to be the fastest person who's mashing the refresh key in order to get that. But you can see here they've done a really good job of actually laying out, and they did this before the Kickstarter landed too. They actually released a bunch of content narrative-wise to kind of like, bleed into things. They do a really good job of kind of, hiding little nuggets of information within the game. They've also done in prior entries of Too Many Bones, they've done like tyrants that nobody's aware of and all kinds of secretive things. They love to kind of just drop little hints here and there and see whether the community can kind of come together and solve the riddle, solve the problems, that type of thing. But you can see right here, if you're familiar with Too Many Bones in any way, shape, or form, these mats look completely different, and it's literally all about building a tyrant is one of the major functions of this Splice and Dice. So you're literally going to be going ahead here using this neoprene mat to actually slot in a bunch of dice and all kinds of skills. And even I'm not 100% familiar with how this works, but I'm already excited from the idea that, basically your tyrant is going to be kind of a custom-made tyrant, which to me just seems super cool if that's the case. So to build a tyrant dice, you got some dice here that I'm assuming are going to give the particular tyrant, special skills, and they're going to be changing up every single time you play. So again, it just adds to the replayability of the game, which is already crazy. So this is just a whole other level. You've got all kinds of chips in here I'm not even familiar with. So you've got tyrant chips, you got a few of those, actually quite a few of those. You got some lab dice. I have no idea how the functionality of that works just yet, but I cannot wait to find out. Dual type baddie chips. So again, they mentioned there's going to be more baddies added into the fray. baddie skills and encounter terms. So again, a nice chart for this. This is actually really cool because I think this is one thing that you constantly reference from either the original base game or Undertow is having this, baddie skills. There's two of them across the two games. So it looks like they're trying to like merge it into one reference sheet, which is nice. Of course, they're giving it two though. They got some knob deck cards here, some pegs. They got some tyrant dice, effect dice, stat dice. There's all kinds of crazy stuff in here. So this is what it looks like. Again, it's just a crazy lab experiment, you building a tyrant. Sounds pretty awesome to me already. Here are some hybrid baddies. So it says the simplest thing that includes the new hybrid baddie type baddies is Nobulus. So I'm not going to go ahead and read all this. I was actually going to for a few seconds, and I'm like, I shouldn't, because I could be here for a really, really long video. But basically, they're going to go ahead and have some new hybrid baddies, which I guess are going to kind of ride the line between, two different, or they could essentially be used in two different tyrant encounters, I guess. So when you're making up your baddie queue for a particular tyrant, and they say, oh, you're going to use all these ones with a purple icon, well, maybe this one can get pulled in the, for that particular tyrant, but also could be pulled in for a different tyrant layout. So that's kind of cool because it allows, they become more interchangeable between tyrants, right? And of course, if the whole premise of this thing is to build a custom tyrant, then that just makes logical sense that they want to go down that road. This, I have no idea. This is just new tyrants, but I don't know what this is. It looks really cool. Maybe this is a symbol of all the tyrants that you're just creating randomly. Pre-designed tyrant to plunge into... Yeah, so this must relate back to the crazy tyrant that you're creating in the lab. You've got some actual legitimate tyrants, I'm guessing, ones that are maybe preset, so these ones will add into the game. Now, if I remember correctly, when I read this, I believe they're trying to extend the life of the game as well, so some of these might be much on the more difficult side of things as well. Could be wrong. There's a lot here to go through, and again, I only found this out today, as all of you guys did, so I haven't read every line here. But it's cool to see any more tyrants being added in is always good, and of course, any more actual characters that you can use, like this one right here, Lockgear. Stretch goal character. That sounds fantastic. Heading on down the page here, creating a tyrant. So it's literally going through all the steps. So if you actually want to understand more about what the heck I'm talking about in terms of the tyrant being created, they do a really good job of actually laying it all out here. They'll show you how this is all going to basically, they got tanks of different things using different tyrants, different dice that just, generate a particular tyrant. Like, it's just madness. It looks really cool. It's kind of like Operation Gone Wrong. So that's pretty awesome. I still haven't actually watched the overview video because this again launched when I was at work today. So I definitely need to take a look at this in order to find out more about this whole tyrant creation package here. But this just looks awesome. Then you've got some add-ons here. So again, this is kind of a running thing with Chip Theory games. They always have individuals that they've hired or added into the crew there, and they start to create actual gear locks of these people in the game. So again, you're gonna be using certain individuals that are actually employees of Chip Theory games, which is kind of cool. So a nod to the individuals that actually work there. And they're calling them the gear lock interns, and there's a pack of them there. So here's the different ones. Again, the edge stitching and the quality of your pre-mats is crazy. This does look different, though. It looks like these ones may not be main characters, though. Maybe these are supposed to be like an ally thing. So there might be a whole new mechanic here because those mats are very different looking. They're not as crazy flushed out as the regular ones. So being that they're interns, then it's kind of like maybe they're used kind of similar to how the animals would be used in Bones. I'm not sure yet. Guess I got to dive into that more. Dart here. So this one here is an actual legitimately full created. This is what a regular Too Many Bones character would look like, essentially. So there's all kinds of stuff. Now this got me really excited. So if you're a fan of Too Many Bones and you've been collecting everything all the way up to now, or you've just been a part of the Kickstarters and you've got stuff at whether it would be a con, a Kickstarter from their store, whatever, secondhand, doesn't matter. This particular chest looks phenomenal. Right now on my shelf, I've got this game divided between 2 or 3 different spots because the box size for Too Many Bones for the core experience is actually quite large, whereas Undertow is smaller and can fit pretty much anywhere. So it's really nice that they're going to go down the road of just making a big block here that you can just kind of slot everything inside of. That'll be really good. It'll also help probably with setup time as well, which would be nice because as of right now, dealing with multiple boxes is kind of crazy. But this looks like trays that are pulled out. So this is certainly an add-on that seems to have some value if you want to, preset things up, have them in the trays, be able to pull it out. They've obviously got a breakdown of how the trays are going to be, all stacked and everything else. Very, very cool. And with Chip Theory games, the quality of this is going to be phenomenal. They're going to meticulously go through every single detail on these trays to make sure everything is perfect. And then, of course, you got unlocks. So again, these are just typical unlocks you're going to see throughout Kickstarters, but it's always great to see this stuff because you get extra stuff, like a golden die, for instance. So that's pretty much it. That is Too Many Bones. Now, if you're interested, because again, I don't expect that everybody that's listening to this video has been to Rolling Solo YouTube channel before, my channel. If this is the first time you've been here and you don't know about it, I actually do have a full Too Many Bones base game playthrough against Drellin. So definitely check that out if you're interested. I'll link to that in this video. And also on top of that video, which was a lot of fun to do the first time around, afterwards, and it was, I believe it was last year, maybe it was early this year. I can't remember. But Undertow, we did the Undertow showcase. That's the most recent one we did. And that was a lot of fun as well. So if you're trying to figure out how Too Many Bones actually plays, how to set it up, all that kind of stuff, I got you covered. You can check those videos out, get a good feel for how the game actually flows, and make an informed decision, hopefully from that playthrough, as to whether or not it's for you or not. Again, I don't review games on the channel, so my opinion is not in there. It's simply just to show you how it plays and leave it up to you. So that's going to do it for Too Many Bones, Splice and Dice. 9 days to go, lots of time to make your decision, so do your research and check it out. This next product that I want to cover is Ironclays and Spades. It's luxury tabletop game counters with elegant storage container and beautifully designed playing cards in a letterpressed box. And I'm reading that literally right off the page you can see right now. Now, first thing I want to mention is right down here, it says Calgary, Canada. So very proud. This is actually coming out of Roxley from within Alberta, Canada, where I am currently located. Although I'm not in Calgary, I'm just north of Calgary in Edmonton. But very cool to see that. What's even cooler is the timing of this project is also kind of strange, because last week I spent a good number of days as my uncle Rodney Smith from Watch It Played showed up at my place and we hung out. We don't get to do that as often as I would like, so we definitely take advantage of the time we have together when we do get together. And we crushed a large number of games, and actually Brass was one of the games that we played, and Rodney actually taught me that game, which was awesome, because, I mean, who else would you want to teach you a game as amazing as Brass and as heavy as Brass than Rodney? So that was really, really cool. And on top of it, the reason I'm tying this in to this particular Kickstarter is because this is where I actually was introduced to the Ironclays for the very first time. I hadn't actually used them yet. So the Ironclays, I can tell you right now, in terms of a gaming component, are obviously extremely high quality. They are very well made, they're durable, they look beautiful. Within the Brass Kickstarter, which was the kind of the revamp of the older version of Brass from Roxley Games, they included these Ironclays for the first time, and it was kind of an option to basically, you could even, complete sets by, getting a really fancy kind of magnetic clip box that would even store more if you wanted more. Well, they've taken it to another level, and there's obviously been a demand here, so they decided to go ahead and just create legitimately a game component. So they've kind of pulled it out of the Brass world and said, this can work for everything, or anything that you want it to be in terms of a counter for another game. So for instance, if you're into Shadows of Brimstone, for instance, I could see Ironclays being a fantastic way to keep track of some of the gameplay going on, whether it be money or anything like that. It's just thematic. It makes sense. And there's a ton of games here on this Kickstarter page that Roxy lists out as games that could use these, and they would fit within the theme and feel right. And the quality, like I said, is off the charts. And the videos here actually do a really good job of showing you really up close, what these things look like, how they, of course you can't actually sense how they feel, but quality-wise you can see these things are not cheap looking. And I can tell you just from experience of holding them myself, I was very impressed. They've gone to the next level, of course. So from the original Kickstarter, or I shouldn't say original Kickstarter, the original Brass Kickstarter, this wooden box and any of these wooden boxes were not an option. Another thing that wasn't an option was these Iron Spades decks of cards. They were also not an option because you don't need to play poker when you're playing Brass. but they were simply used as counters in brass, and not all denominations that are shown in this Kickstarter were even used in brass. Some of the newest denominations right here, like 500 and 2K, were the ones that were added into this Kickstarter specifically just to basically make complete poker sets or complete counter sets for whatever you want to use it for. And actually, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, if you go down here, of course, the pricing starts to come out here in terms of the spade cards, which are also super high quality. They actually look absolutely phenomenal, and I'm definitely going to be picking up some of these. But they start to go through kind of how everything worked, and what's really nice is at some point here, there is a link to a page where if you backed the previous brass Kickstarter, you can actually go in there and say, oh, this is how many of the iron clays I got from brass. This is what I'd like to have in the end. What do I need to pledge for to get there? So, of course, with something like this, when you're talking about multiple denominations of chips, iron clays, and things like that, it can get confusing. But they've done a really good job of laying that all out in a detailed document, which is awesome. So this is literally the best version of what was available from the brass Kickstarter. So this was kind of like, this is a complete set essentially, but you'll notice that like those new denominations are not in there, and they also wouldn't fit if you wanted them to. And they also say here, this is kind of what this 100 clay set that's magnetically, sealed box, it's embossed, it has a nice certificate that comes with it, and for its authentic, to show that it's authentic and things like that. But they've also got like a massive list of compatible games here where you could use them. And of course, some of them aren't even, like I mentioned, for instance, Shadows of Brimstone. I wouldn't even, they didn't even mention it there, for example. But that would be a perfect one to mention because it's literally a Western theme. So poker chips just work instantly. And anyway, continuing on. So this is what I have. I have actually 2 sets of these particular ones. But as you go down further, you start to realize, oh, okay, so like what do you get to in the end? Oh, okay, you can have 2 sets inside of one box. Oh, interesting. So they've started to go down the road of like, if you have 2 sets from the prior brass, you can actually figure out what you need in order to just get the box to put the 2 of them inside. Done. And that's the cheapest option. It's a fancier box than what you had from the original one. Or you could say, I want to really up it, and I want to go to like the $200 wooden chest edition. Comes with the cards as well, and of course you get like a bank tray for everything. It looks super fancy. And then that's when the actual new denominations start coming in, so you can start ramping it up to the next level. So you're not just maybe using them for games, you're actually using them for poker as well. But that's also a possibility. There's also more compatible games that it mentions once you start getting up into higher denominations, of course. They show you videos of what it looks like on the table, and I'm not lying. When you play brass, it's a beautiful game, and this particular, those poker chips just look phenomenal, everything side by side like that. And this is madness in terms of quality. It looks so nice. So I'll definitely be going after that. And then, of course, you want to be absolutely insane. You can go to the kind of all-in, kind of situation where you really love poker. You really know you're going to be getting a lot of use out of this thing, and you really want like the limited edition, super fancy wooden box. And of course, the bank tray even goes up a notch in terms of its quality. You're getting even more denominations of chips than you'd expect in there. And so it also breaks out like how are these things made? What are they made of? That type of thing. It's all very informative. Add-ons are all here for specific things. You can actually just get denominations of particular ones that you want to get. This is what's really cool. So it says, do you already own this is what I was referring to earlier. Do you already own a set of iron clays or brass deluxe and you want to upgrade your set? This is what I was talking about. So if you went to the brass Kickstarter and you have no idea what to get, this is what's really awesome that they did. They literally went ahead and said, like for me, for instance, I went ahead and I own 2 of the brass deluxe for these 2 particular brass games. So because I have this, if I want to go ahead and get the crazy wooden box, well, this is the price, this is the amount to pledge, this is the discount I get, that type of thing. So it's literally showing you the path to how to get to whatever level during this Kickstarter that you need. And this, honestly, there's more Kickstarters that need to do stuff like this, because some Kickstarters get into situations, especially like this, and more so for games, not for gaming components, that there's just too many options and it's not clear. But this is phenomenal, and everyone could take a page out of the book in terms of being able to create something like this that makes it easier for people to actually understand. So definitely a big kudos to them for going the extra mile on that one. But that's about it. Really, at the end of the day, this isn't a game. It's not going to provide you any solo playability at all. But if you're interested in poker and stuff like this, I thought it was worth mentioning this product because I'm really on board with the component of it itself, and I really do believe it can be used as a counter in other games. And of course, it's a luxury product, so it's for sure not necessary. But if you're into poker, which I do enjoy playing with my friends, and also love playing board games, I see a use for this. I can actually, I know that I use the ones that I have, and I will be using the ones that I have, so I'm already interested in this project. So that's pretty much all I have to say about that one, and there's more details on the Kickstarter page you can dive into if you want to find out more. Now, this next Kickstarter landed actually today, the day of this recording, and that day is, just so you guys are aware, is June the 4th. You guys might be seeing this video on June the 5th. Company of Heroes, the board game. Now, I've heard of this within the month. This was one that snuck up on me for some strange reason. I didn't even hear much about it at all. In any circles, I just didn't hear anything about it. And then all of a sudden, I started hearing a lot about it within about a 2-week span. I believe that the actual Kickstarter date got pushed by a week, so that might have actually caused some of the commotion in terms of, when it's coming out, oh, it's been delayed, how long is it going to be delayed? So that's when the conversation started stirring, and that's kind of when it somehow slipped into my feed, and boom, I became aware of it. First off, I'm a huge fan of the Company Heroes game, the video game itself. This was the only war-based game in terms of, actually, it was probably the only RTS, or might have been my actual last RTS that I actually thoroughly enjoyed. I kind of fell off the bandwagon of RTSs once Company Heroes kind of went through its life cycle. I don't think I played a single one after that. So I have really fond memories of this particular game in the video game, the digital format. So I'm already intrigued and want to see kind of what they're doing in the board game space, because I can see this pulling a lot of people that are looking for a war game that's a little bit more visual. We have a lot of war games and stuff like this, and of course, war games is a term that I'm probably using out of context, because there's board games that kind of involve war, and there's actually war games, and they're kind of two separate things. That's a whole other conversation. But what I'm trying to get to with this particular Kickstarter is I believe what this is going to do for the board gaming hobby is it's going to have a bunch of individuals that are kind of either war gamers or individuals that are just interested in the digital or video game version of this kind of get pulled in a little bit. And it's going to increase, I think, the popularity of board games in general because of this IP. Now, the question really becomes, is the actual mechanics and the structure and the gameplay that they put together around this worth actually getting into? And that's a whole other ball of wax. You guys are going to have to do your research on this one. You can see this particular creator is Bad Crow Games. They've created 2 projects before. So if we click on the 2 that they've created, they did Mech Command RTS, a real-time strategy board game. So we actually jump back to that. This particular one was pledged, and if I'm not mistaken, it looks like this one is out the door, I believe. So shipment beginning, quality updates. Yeah, so it looks like they were doing kind of their shipment at the tail end of when this one started, or people have already received. Now, I don't know anything about Mech Command RTS at all, but I do know about Company of Heroes now. I don't know a ton because I haven't gone through this Kickstarter page really in detail, but I'm excited to explore this with you guys because I really think this could be something special after doing a little bit of research outside of this Kickstarter launching just before it did. So I haven't seen the page too much in detail, but I saw a lot of articles about this thing. So first off, what they're doing here, which I already think is a win, is the visual appeal. So right off the bat, they've already captured me in terms of it looking and feeling like Company of Heroes from what I remember from the RTS. And the other thing I really enjoy is the fact that they've gone to the level of actually creating full-on, miniatures for these particular products. Now, again, miniatures don't make a board game, but when you're talking about a game that involves war and a game where there's buildings and tanks and infantrymen and all this kind of stuff, it's nice to have the visual. And I found there was quite a few solo board games even, like, what was it? Conflict of Heroes was actually one that I really, really enjoyed. But again, everything was flat to the table. So you kind of had to use your imagination a little bit, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. And you had to imagine things from a top-down view, and you're using tokens for your infantry instead of an actual miniature. And there's just something about with when it comes down to the theme of war, where actually being able to visually see a tank on the table is much more impressive, I guess. And it's kind of probably the same as saying, I guess the best comparison would be like Star Wars Legion. If Star Wars Legion had come out and instead of it being a miniatures game, it was designed like Conflict of Heroes, where all the miniatures were just tokens and they were flat, it wouldn't, like, I don't think it would invoke the same type of excitement level when you actually see it on the table. I think there'd be something missing there. There'd be a disconnect. So this is one of those games where I think miniatures really do actually help enrich the experience, and it doesn't look like they've gone too far off the bandwagon, at least in the core box, in terms of picking and choosing what should be a miniature and what should be a token. They also have a lot of tracking mechanisms within the dice, which is really cool, that I've seen on the buildings, which is a really interesting thing that I noticed in one of the pictures when I was doing my research here. You can see these buildings have these little entrenches here on the sides of the miniatures. So from my understanding, you actually are going to be, it might be something to do with, well, here you go right here. This will actually sum it up. So like you're going to go ahead and use these dice actually to, oh, that's actually really, really interesting. I like that even more than I thought I would actually. So the dice are actually going to go into the tray themselves behind the infantrymen in some cases, and they're going to represent different conditions or things that they're doing. That's like, or abilities that they're unlocking. So that's actually really interesting. And then on top of it, like I said, the building thing is there too. Now, what I don't know about the building is I don't know if is that how much damage the building's taking, or is that representing a die that basically says this is how many men are inside the building, like that type of thing. But I know they're using the dice in those ways, which I think is really smart. So they're kind of going an extra step beyond just here's some miniatures, roll some dice on the table, done. It looks like they put some thought into the actual, how to ingrain them into the gameplay so that it makes sense. Again, I haven't played this, but I'm certainly intrigued. I'm very, very, very intrigued by this one. So you can see, like, they call them dice markers. So again, they've got all these different conditions all over them. I really do think, yeah, like slow and pinned. So you're using them, I don't believe you're using them to roll. You're using them to actually indicate statuses and effects and upgrades. And because, of course, they're six-sided dice, you're able to cover a lot more than you would with a ton of tokens, right? Just having tokens everywhere. Because, instead of creating 6 tokens for all the different effects on this die, one die covers it all. So that's really smart. And again, you're keeping them in trays that are then attached to the infantry, so they're not flying all over the board. You've got them embedded in buildings. Very cool. I'm intrigued by this. This is one that I would certainly recommend you guys to look into. If you're interested in the theme, of course, if you're not interested in the war theme, then this is going to be a quick and easy pass. But it's interesting. And this is the one thing that, of course, pulled me in, because at the end of the day, like, whether or not this game is good or not is yet to be seen. But there is a solo and cooperative campaign that they've actually put together. So it looks like this isn't again, you're paying to get this. But, there could be some individuals that may or may not like that per se, and would have, liked it better if it was actually part of the original game. But we also have to remember that in these miniature games, they're typically 1 versus 1, or maybe even 2 versus 2, or maybe 1 versus 1 versus 1 versus 1, or something like that. Typically, solo and co-op aren't always going to be baked in from the beginning. Would have been nice to see that, but it's good that it's here. And it's being developed already, and it's not a stretch goal in terms of, hey, if we reach a certain amount of funding, we might think about it. It's nice to see that it's, this is an actual thing that they've actually gone ahead and put together. So how well is this done? That again is yet to be seen, but this is a reason why I think solo players should go ahead and do some research on this to find out whether or not it's something that works for them. There's all kinds of stuff here. I'm not going to talk too much more about it because I am just not as familiar with this project as I'd like to be, and I'd like to watch a couple more videos myself to just become more familiar with it. I do really appreciate the fact they did put the rulebook on here. That's huge. There's a lot of projects like this that don't do things like that. So they've done a really great job of actually literally letting you just take a look through the rulebook to find out, more information on the game and not have to worry about waiting to see the rulebook down the line. There's a lot of Kickstarters that don't show the rulebook until like the last day, and sometimes they promise to do and they never do. So this really, really solidifies it for me, because you can look at it and go, do I like what I'm seeing here before I actually back the game? So I really appreciate that they went to that level to actually show it. And actually, it doesn't look like a super I was expecting a lot heavier of a read, but that is a very light game, so like, or rule book. So if that is, so that seems like a pretty concise rule book, but that is pretty much all I'm going to say about this one. So hopefully this was informative in terms of showing you what this particular Kickstarter has to offer, at least at a very, very high level. Definitely do your research to see whether or not this is something you want to back. So let's move on to the next project. The next Kickstarter project I want to take a look at is The Few and the Cursed board game. This comes from Rock Manor Games. This is Mike Nade, and if you're familiar with Maximum Apocalypse or Set a Watch, those are games that I covered on Kickstarter previews in the past. And this is the newest entry into Rock Manor Games. So this one I'm actually the least familiar with out of the three of them that I just mentioned. This one is new to me, so I haven't actually played this one at all just yet. But if you were a fan of Maximum Apocalypse or you were a fan of Set a Watch and what was going on there, then this may be something for you, worth taking a look at for sure, based on the previous entries and successful fulfillment of previous Kickstarters. So there's key features here. You've got rich world full of lore. There's actually comic books involved here. And again, I guess that's the way you describe this particular world, is Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets the Old West comic book series about people trying to survive a world where most of the water evaporated overnight in a mysterious apocalyptic event back in 1840. You got some interesting miniature sculpts there for sure. And they've got some really nice Kickstarter designs here in terms of the actual models, showing all the different miniatures, likely the actual characters that you'll be playing. And it does involve deck building, as it mentions here. Moving along, we got some storytelling involved, pushing your luck elements, and it also shows you what's in the box, of course, which is most of what we just saw. And we keep on rolling down here. There's a big 6-fold game board. So the game board looks pretty cool. And, oh, there's a deluxe edition. I did not know that. Deluxe edition. Oh, so you can up your tokens to wooden water tokens. You get a first player metal coin. You get stretch goals on top of that, which are being unlocked as we speak. There is an art book along with the game as well, and and a how-to play video as well. So there's not too many how-to play videos on this particular one. But there is a rule book, so that's awesome. Again, love it, love it, love it when the creators include the rule book from the get-go, so there's no confusion. You can actually just read the rule book if you want to know how to play the game. And it looks like there'll be some preview and press that's going to kind of slide in here over time. But that's about it. So I did want to highlight this one because, again, like previous entries that have come from Rock Manor Games, I've enjoyed. And again, I can't speak to whether or not this one will fit your likes or dislikes, or of course you may not want it to fit your dislikes, but I can't speak to whether or not this one will be a game you want to play because I haven't actually personally played it myself yet. But I definitely think that solo gamers should keep an eye on the fact that this is solo playable. It's worth looking into. The rulebook is there. Definitely check it out. See if it's something that works for you. And it's on Kickstarter for another 22 days or so, so you've got lots of time to make your decision on The Few and the Cursed. All right, this next Kickstarter here is Alter Quest. Now, this one's actually been on Kickstarter for a few days already. I think maybe a week or more actually already. And this one funded in less than 2 hours. This is a game designed by Adam and Brady Sadler from Blacklist Games. Now, if you're not familiar with their previous entries or their previous creations, they've created games like, or worked on games with Fantasy Flight in the past and even recently, but also have their own thing going on at Blacklist Games, and they've produced a number of games like Brook City, Street Masters, and that type of thing. And the elements and the mechanisms that have come out of the games they've created with Street Masters and Brook City have found their way into Alter Quest. And if you look at Alter Quest, now I say this because it might sound like I actually have experience with Hero Quest, but I really don't. Alter Quest is supposed to give you the visual and the feeling of what it was like to play Hero Quest back in the day when Hero Quest was a thing, when it really invoked the imagination and, you know, the sense of adventure and the unknown and all that kind of stuff. It's supposed to visually give you that, but it's not supposed to give you the same gameplay. It's supposed to have gameplay that's actually taken, kind of almost like patented really, by Adam and Bradley Sandler, used in their previous games. Like Street Master is a great example, where they have like modular deck systems that can be kind of interchanged, and there's synergies between cards and all this kind of stuff. It's actually really great what they've designed, because Street Masters was a game that I actually showcased on my channel, so if you haven't checked that out, definitely go check that out. It'll give you a good idea as to how the card play works. I haven't played Alter Quest yet, so I can't speak to how much different the actual design of the game is, but I'm sure it's not a carbon copy. But some of the actual mechanisms that they have built within Street Masters and Brook City, some of the way that you manage your deck and use your cards, I think has carried over in a way to Alter Quest, which is cool to see, because there's a lot of success found in those previous two entries that they've put out. So there's a good reason to kind of bring that over. So the biggest thing that I've heard about Alter Quest is that it's not supposed to be Hero Quest, you know, revisioned in terms of a carbon copy of what Hero Quest used to be, just modernized. It's supposed to be, hey, look, it looks like Hero Quest, but it plays more modern, essentially. So that's really cool to see. It's also a very vivid and bright, colorful world. And I think Adam and Bradley Sandler also went kind of the extra mile to create kind of a world around this game. So first off, $400,000 on Kickstarter in terms of Canadian funds, almost 300,000 US. So they've flown past their goal. They've got lots of time left for this project to go, and they're already ripping through their stretch goals. Of course, things like traps and crates and feeding troughs and all kinds of other, you know, miniatures are going to appear within the game world. So this stuff is just unlocking as they go along. Ooh, look at that. You got some new dice. Those are actually pretty cool looking. I like that. So moving right along here, we get to the introduction. Again, as I mentioned, they went the extra mile to kind of add the narrative in there and kind of a world that actually is a big deal within this. So it's not just kind of a typical dungeon crawler per se. So they're trying to kind of go the extra distance with this one in terms of its design, and also really the nostalgia of going back to Hero Quest. There's a lot of people that really enjoyed that. Now I missed the boat on Hero Quest, so I don't have that pull. But this game still pulls me in, even though I don't have that connection to Hero Quest. I've heard about it. I've seen hilarious videos on YouTube about it. I know that it's a very, very beloved game. I know that if you played it now, these days, it doesn't have the kind of legs that it used to have. It's still great, but it's, you know, it's old and it shows its age. But it's really cool to see somebody trying to, you know, bring that joy back to the community in a different way and stuff like that, and designing something special and new and modernizing it, essentially. So a lot of what I just talked about is really actually explained in the Kickstarter. So you can see right here, using modular deck systems, which came into Street Masters of Brook City. This is the kind of thing that made up where Alter Quest. So if you want to find out more about all that kind of stuff in better language, you can see that right on the Kickstarter right here. Kickstarter tier really just shows you everything you can expect to pick up in the game. There's miniatures galore in here. There's also some actual terrain and stuff like this that show up. They got fancy dice. I really like the dice because they look like they're translucent, I think. That looks really cool. The artwork looks great. Like, honestly, if this is the artwork that's actually on the cards, I'm already very impressed, because I like the style of it. It works for me. Plastic rings is something that they've been doing forever. Basically, you can slip them on, and they typically will very easily reference the cards in the decks in the modular deck system, so it makes life very simple. Likely that's following the same pattern there. Tokens, of course. The game board's beautiful. Like, again, if you're if you're a fan of Hero Quest and how it was designed, how it looked in terms of its structure, which is really just a whole bunch of rectangles and squares matched together in different patterns and things like that, it's still very beautiful. I don't know what it is about it. It's just kind of, it's modular, I guess, in a way. And again, I didn't experience Hero Quest as some of you guys likely did, so I missed out on that for sure. But this definitely has the vibe. This definitely looks like it. And then the other cool thing, too, that I actually noticed was they had Isaac Childress actually kind of connect in with them at one point. I believe I saw a Facebook post or something like that about this, where they kind of sat down with him and played the game. And I think, and it appears that Isaac's actually doing a Kickstarter exclusive kind of side campaign or maybe scenario or something like that there. So it looks like yeah, it's it's an expansion. My mistake. So that's actually even cooler. He's actually doing a full-on expansion into the game. So that's really interesting to see. I like that quite a bit. So that's interesting. And you got werewolves, moon children, pack masters, all kinds of interesting stuff. All right. So moving on, you got gameplay overview. So the demo kit rulebook, again, another rulebook shown here. That's great. I definitely want to actually take a look at this. I want to dive into this one quite a bit more. And this is the map. Actually, I saw them actually posting about this as they were designing it and showing different drawings leading up to the final thing. But again, they've designed a full map as to where this game essentially takes place. It talks about the altars here to actually give you an idea as to why it's called Altar Quest in the first place. I'm not going to get into it, but you want to find out more about that, it's all here as well. It's modular, so if you're very, very familiar, like I said, with Brook City and Street Masters, the modular system that they've created with within those other two games is fantastic. It allows for a ton of replayability and different gameplay just by changing up your heroes, the individuals you're going up against, the events, the scenario itself, all that kind of stuff. It's really modular in terms of every aspect or every major aspect of the gameplay can be chopped up and taken into different bits and swapped, or kind of swapped out and switched around. And that really allows for the replayability to kind of skyrocket quite a bit, which is nice. Truly solo and truly cooperative. Again, the reason I'm showing this on this particular segment is because, well, it fits right into our community. This is a game that can be played solo, and these guys have always kind of leaned in that direction in terms of designing towards the solo community and not thinking of it as an afterthought. It's usually baked right into their games, which is fantastic. 3 great ways to play. So different ways to actually play through the game here. And then, of course, there's actually some videos out here you can check out. And if you want to find out more about the game, it's got some close-ups of the miniatures. So this is also really cool to see, like some of the miniatures. This gigantic villain here, this huge frog. It's pretty awesome. There's the altar itself. Again, I want to know more about what, like, it's called Altar Quest for a reason, sorry. So I cannot wait to actually find out more about that. And then you got add-ons, and you can get a neoprene board mat. So if you're really crazy about getting neoprene mats, I kind of get into that zone at times where I love having a neoprene mat. I just don't know what it is. It's just really cool. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's a little bit bigger maybe than the base game board. I have to double check that, but for 20, that's not bad. And then you've got a campaign box. Oh, I actually didn't know that was there. So there is another campaign there, another expansion. So I guess in total there's 2 expansions, including Isaac's. So that's kind of cool. I didn't actually notice that the first time through. Okay, and then they got the team kind of all broken down here. So Adam, Brady, Scott, and Justin, avatars, shipping info, all the good stuff. So if you're interested in finding more about the Kickstarter, this is the page you want to check out. You want to watch the videos that are there. That'll help you to understand more about this particular game. But being that this is a game that has solo players in mind from the get-go, it's a cooperative game for 1 to 4 players. Anything that's cooperative can be played solo. This is definitely something worth looking into. Let's move on to the next project. And last but not least is Batman Gotham City Chronicles Season Number 2. And the reason I'm showing this as the very last thing on this particular segment is because, well, officially there is no solo mode for Batman Gotham City Chronicles. But what I am excited to show you guys the fact that the community at Board Game Geek is so passionate about Batman and about the system and the mechanisms and really what's been built here through Conan, their original Monolith's Kickstarter that kind of started this whole thing. Then on to Batman Gotham City Chronicles, and now on to Batman Gotham City Chronicles Season 2. They've banded together essentially on Board Game Geek and created a solo variant. And again, I don't know if an individual did this per se or had help from multiple individuals, but that solo variant is unofficial. It's not endorsed by Monolith in any way, shape, or form. However, it's really, really, it looks well presented and well thought out. It doesn't look like something that was put together over lunch hour or something that was just scribbled on paper. It really does have a lot going for it. And I want to show you that before we talk about Batman Gotham City Chronicles, because it's a big disclaimer that, yes, this game is not a solo game, but yes, someone actually did go ahead and create a solo variant. So that might influence your decision as to whether or not you want to pick this one up. If you're interested in Batman and you're interested in potentially playing this with other players, but also need the ability to play this thing solo, there is a way to do it now. The question is it going to be what you hope it's going to be? And the only way to find that out would probably be to talk to people on Board Game Geek about that variant. So let's talk about that particular variant right now. And that's this one right here. So as you can see, this particular variant is on Board Game Geek. And what's really ironic about this particular variant, if I actually go back in this, is right, you can see here that it was JK777 put this thing together. 56 thumbs. Of course, I gave my own thumb as well. 154 Geek Gold received, which is a lot. And if we actually go back to the file section in general, the hilarious thing is that it's literally the highest ranking file for the game. And there's actually, as you can see here, there's a lot of files, and a lot of them have to do with like skill reference sheets and just reference sheets in general, because this is a miniatures game. There's lots of abilities. They're all buried in the rule book, and you know, the community basically created a lot of these reference sheets, and then Monolith actually created official ones as well. So they're pretty popular, but the most popular thing is people wanting to be able to play this thing solo. So if you're wondering whether it's possible to play solo, yes, it is. The question is, again, is this going to fill that you know, is it going to give you joy when you pick up the game and spend the money? Is this solo variant good? That I can't answer. I have not played this yet. I'm very, very interested in diving into this one, and I'm very much considering doing this one on the channel as something to explore in the near future. But for now, I just want to show you what the solo variant looks like, and to show you that it's actually not something written on a napkin or a random piece of paper, that it was actually well thought out, it looks like, and put together. So you've got yourself solo rules here. The villain's turn. You're going to be drawing a card from the villain AI solo deck. So what's nice to see is that it looks like the villain's going to be the one that's automated here. Now, I don't know if that can go either way, but it makes sense that you play the heroes against the villain, and the villain is the AI. That just kind of makes thematic sense, I guess, if you're playing in a solo capacity. I guess it would be kind of cool to be the villain and beat up the heroes, but, you know, for the purposes of creating a solo variant, I think this makes most sense. And then you've got all these things broken out to events, reinforcements, how they all work. You've got this wonderful chart here. Again, it might look like they're all interconnected, but they're really in columns. So when you draw a solo card, you go down the list. When you do a melee attack, you go down the list. When you do a ranged attack, down the list. And after a while, this stuff won't even need to be here anymore, because it'll become intuitive. You'll know this, and you'll just do it when it happens. So what's nice is you're not going to be confused whatsoever about how this works. Then moving on to the next thing here are the missions, of course, because if you're playing solo, objectives are going to change, or need to be adjusted to make sense for solo play. So he's gone ahead and he's adjusted objective 1, 2, the villain objectives, all that kind of stuff, and put comments where necessary for each of the different things in the game, or things you can play in the game, which is great because you're going to need that help. And then what's even awesomer is the fact that there's an automa deck. So no, it's not just a bunch of rules that you have to try and remember all the time. You've got an actual automa deck that you can print out and you can draw cards from. This is actually going to tell you exactly how it's going to be played. You're not going to know. It's going to keep the randomization there. This individual, and I don't know if it's a he or a she, it's Jay, so I'm assuming it's a he, could be wrong though. But basically, like, you've got all kinds of icons here that he's created, basically, and maybe reference from the game as well, in order to streamline things, to basically say what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. And I love the effort that this individual went to put this together, because it looks really well done. I really do think Monolith should take a look at it, because if the testing goes through with this in the realm that it actually is, a very well-made solo variant, and this could be something that they might want to look into actually implementing into the game in the future. You've even got like a difficulty hard mode here, where you can actually bump up the difficulty if you really want to go crazy. But that's it. I wanted to show you guys what it looked like. I'm really, really impressed by that. There's a lot of fan-made solo variants that aren't presented as well as that, or at least as concise as that. So I'm really excited to actually give that a shot and see how it goes. If you're interested in Batman, of course, this is going to pull you in. If you're interested in playing with other people, that's going to pull you in. Those two things combined, if you have familiarity with Conan, that's going to be a sell right there. Because if you loved Conan and you love Batman and you want to play with other people, this is a buy. If you want to play in the solo capacity, I can't say it's a buy, because I don't know how that solo variant plays just yet, but it's certainly something worth researching and asking questions about. Certainly do that on Board Game Geek in the Batman forum section, you should be able to find people, especially the individual who created the variant, to be able to answer your questions, or individuals that have actually tested out his variant and can actually either support or give critiques against whether or not it's worth buying the game for just that solo variant, because it is unofficial. But I thought I'd bring it to your attention because a lot of people will dismiss games like this thinking like, oh, this isn't, there's no way this is going to be solo playable when you have this many player boards on the table. There's no way someone could design a solo game out of this. And boom, somebody did it within a few months after the first Kickstarter delivered. So when you have a passionate community of people that want to see a game played solo, they'll make it happen whether the actual creator does it or not. So that's really exciting to see, and maybe the actual creators of the game and the publisher will actually see this and kind of pick up on it. Who knows? So yeah, we're moving on through here. Again, the rulebook is here. If you actually want to check out the rulebook, you can see kind of how it's played right here. And again, it's going to go through all the content in the game. There's a ton of content. I'm not going to go through every single one of these things, but it lists out all this stuff from the first season. And then right here is where it starts for this Kickstarter in terms of the new stuff they're adding in. So gifts you're going to get and new packages and everything else. Honestly, guys, on the table, the thing looks phenomenal when it's on the table. It's Batman. They've done a killer job representing Batman and doing it in a way that's up to par for sure. And if not above par. The question just lies in the fact for solo players whether or not the solo variant is going to be the winner or not. So that's actually going to do it, guys. That's going to wrap up the Rolling On Kickstarter for June 2019. I hope this was informative for you guys in picking out a number of projects that I have my eyes on, some of which, two of which actually, I guess with this one here, don't have official solo modes. In the Iron Clays actually aren't even a game, but I still want to point out projects that have to do with board games in general, and ones that I think can help you guys in terms of whether you're used for counters, and also just kind of give an appreciation to the people in our community, our solo gaming community, that actually go the extra mile to do like, to create variants and stuff like this for other people to enjoy games that they really want to play solo. I really like that stuff is absolutely amazing. There's a lot of people creating stuff that are getting some type of reward back for it, but it's really something else when somebody goes the extra mile and creates something that's just for pure enjoyment of a large group of people without anything given back in return. And that's just incredible to see, and I really do want to thank the individual who put that together. They deserve all the credit in the world, and I can't actually wait to give it a shot myself to see how it plays. So that's going to do it, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, keep on rolling solo.